Hello YouTube, Damo_23 here, and welcome back to another FPL video. This video is being filmed at 6:10 p.m. on Friday night. As you can see, game line deadline is at 3 a.m. in the morning for me. This is the video where I decide the team that I'll roll into matchday 1 and the Premier League season. If you do enjoy the video, give it a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, comment down below who you have picked in your team, who's your differential, and who is your most nailed on player. I think it should be everyone that is Haaland, so maybe who's your second most nailed on player. The team has changed since the first video, which actually was very well received, and while I'm filming the second video, so if you want these to continue, definitely let me know. And look, the team is as forward as on stream. Also down below is a link. Me and my friend Paulie have done multiple podcasts in the past. We had our own sports podcast, our own Premier League podcast. We're both very busy. I have a fleeting semi-professional poker career, and as you can tell from my YouTube channel, we play Football Manager a lot in my spare time. And Paul is a teacher, and Dom, well, he's Dom. He'll watch this and have a chuckle. He just tags along all the time because he's a good lad, and we discuss FPL. So if you want to listen to our first podcast for this season, I can't promise you it's every single week. We try, but yeah, links down below to the Spotify link to listen to that. And that's where this team was discussed, and I have made a change from that podcast, but definitely a change since you've seen it last on YouTube. I want to just discuss what's changed and what's stayed the same. There's a few key players. So, as of matchday 1, it's Pickford, Gabriel, Chilwell, Estupiñán, Maddison, Salah, Saka, Bruno, and Mbeumo. Haaland, Joe Pedro, with a bench of Turner, who has officially moved to Forest, Colwill, Mubama, and Bulldog. Now, the changes for me is I had Onana in my last YouTube video. As people know, I'm a Fantasy Football Hub Ultra member. I had FPL Gian as my coach for the season, and he advised me to look at maybe alternative options to Onana because of if Bruno's going to be taking the bonus points away from Onana getting free, unless he keeps a clean sheet, it's going to be 6-7 points unless he has a worldie of a game below. So with that being said, an Arsenal letting Turner go to Forest, you're going to have a 4.0 keeper that plays on your bench and rotates nicely with a couple of 4.5s. Pickford's the one I've chosen with because I just believe Sean Dyche will improve the Everton defence enough to allow Pickford to hopefully turn into old school Nick Pope of Burnley and get a lot of minutes. We know he's a world-class keeper on his day, Pickford. And I think it's a more exciting pick than Johnston. Now, Johnston, I think, plays for a better defence. Gaeta's leaving in his nailed, and I think he's going to be great. But I honestly think there's more upside than Pickford. I feel like if Everton are going to win games at small 1-0, then where Crystal Palace will win games 2 or 3, as they might score a couple. I think if Everton winning 1-0, Pickford's made 5 or 6 saves, plus a clean sheet, plus 3 bonus. I just think there's more upside, and Pickford will have more hauls. And especially between him and Turner, there's a lot of home fixtures early on. And then as you get to game weeks 9, 10, 11, and 12, the fixtures start to turn for both, you will be looking at your first wildcard. Back 3 hasn't changed. Gabriel, Chilwell, and Estupiñán. Watch the last video, which will be in a playlist on my YouTube if you want to see why I've picked them. Chilwell was starting. I did mention in the podcast last night that Udogie came in, or Udogie. I really want to have a Spurs asset or 2, hence why Maddison. I know Kane's leaving. That's been confirmed, ready to go. And that's always been my thinking that he would leave. I've always planned that he would leave. And it's made me, though, sell Udogie back, thinking about it long term. I'd want to have a Spurs asset. As you guys know, that in game week 3, I've already planned, as you can see on the screen, to get Pedro Porro in game week 3. Which means that for me, it's already 2 Spurs assets free if I have Udogie. If Richarlison becomes nailed as a 7 million, I'm locking myself out of that with 2 defenders and a midfielder. And what happens if I really want to move Salah down to Son if Son's playing up front? With this being said, I've decided to drop the Udogie, brought back in Colwill, who was originally in the last video. I just think having 2 Chelsea assets and the ability to pick up a Sterling, a Jackson, or whoever is not bad. There is potential that I might move him to Henry. He's the only position that I'm not 100% nailed on, and that's only because I might look at 2 Chelsea attackers down the line, and I don't want to be priced out of that, and I don't want to have to take hits. It's my main reason why I've picked James Maddison. And that's because if I'm going to look to bring him in game week 3, and yes, I could wait game week 1 and 2 to see how they line up, out of all the Spurs assets, Kane leaving and Kane staying doesn't affect him. He is that good at creating. He's played in the 8. He's going to be bombing on in the AM system when he gets beyond the 9, no matter who it is. He's going to be linking up the underlapping fullback while I wanted Udoji and while we'll be getting Pedro Porro in game week 3. And because of that, the creative outlet of Maddison will not change no matter who's around him. At Leicester, he was feeding in Harvey Barnes, Vardy, Daka, Iheanacho. And he's going to be feeding in the likes of Son, Richarlison, other midfielders, both Porro and Udoji as well to get these clear-cut chances. I think out of all the Spurs assets, Maddison becomes the best. I also think he'll be on some set pieces, some corners, and they'll have to find a new penalty taker. I do think it will end up going to Son, but with Son's positioning being so wide, not an option for me right now, and one I would wait on to see what he does in the first 2 weeks. If Maddison gets penalties, he is the best 7.5, 8 million midfielder for me in my mind, especially in a system that I know so well, being Australian and watching Ange long term. Salah hasn't left since I put him in, especially with the injuries that Jesus and Kunku becomes more viable. Saka, Bruno, as I mentioned, I think it's very close between him and Rashford. I think he's on pens. I think he is on pens. Obviously, he's on pens. I think having pens weighs it in his favour that he's a much better player to pick over Rashford. Where I think their output is about the same. Rashford might have more goal threat till Højlund comes back or Højlund. I think Bruno, with penalties and what he has offered in the past, he's been a 200-point man before, I think would be better in the long term. And that's what I've set my team up. This team, maybe I'll game weeks 1, 2, and 3, maybe won't get as many points, but I'm thinking from game weeks 3 to 7, we're going to have a lot of points filter through this team. With that being said, for Bruno, I want to touch on a couple of key stats. I think he hit the crossbar or the post something like 14 times last season. If half of those goes in, that's an extra 5 to 7 goals this season. That's a lot of points for a midfielder. That also leads to more bonus. Also, games are going to go to 100 minutes, and he's a 90-minute man where he doesn't get substituted by United. And penalties generally happen later in games. If you look at the statistics, it is mainly 85th, 90th minute, dying minute penalties that get given a lot. I think Man United are due after only getting 3 last year to get a few more. With that being said, I think Bruno will outscore Rashford over the long term throughout the whole season. And with that, I want him in from game week 1. Still going with Mbeumo. I have pivoted to Eze a couple of times, but it will be Mbeumo. He's on penalties, he's on free kicks, he's on corners. I think he's got a lot of way to points. This dead leg, Dorito or Def, do not worry. He's been pitched in full training, so I think that's fine. Haaland, I will be captaining. Yes, I will be captain game week 2, and as long as this video does well, and you guys haven't told me to shut up, I'd be more than happy to tell you what I'm going to do in game week 2 in terms of the team with another video. Joe Pedro looks nailed, another penalty taker, which means I have a penalty taker in Haaland, a penalty taker in Pedro, a penalty taker in Mbeumo, a penalty taker in Bruno, a penalty taker in Saka, a penalty taker in Salah, a potential penalty taker in Maddison, and if it is confirmed by a press conference somehow that Reece James will be on penalties over Chilwell, I would probably move for Reece James for Chilwell as well. Bench-wise, only issues I have is if I go Colwill to maybe a Brentford defender like Rico Henry or Pinnock, or I maybe switch to Anderson, and that's just because I don't want to have lock myself out of potentially 2 more Chelsea spots for game weeks 3 and 4, especially if they look really good going forward. Or maybe if I want to find the funds to get to Reece James somewhere by dropping Salah down the line. With that being said, I think having double Chelsea and their fixtures, I think they'll lead to clean sheets and then allows me still to get one attacker if I choose to go down that route. Mbama's the only other one. Obviously, Balogun could go to West Ham, but it looks like he's more than likely to go into the French league. So he's not an option. I think there's Joselu, who is playing for Sheffield because of injuries that we could go through. My only issue with Mbama is because he's got 11-12% ownership, if he doesn't play for West Ham the first 2 games, I think he's a lot of transfers out and he's going to go down in value, and that's all hit waiting to happen where I want to make my other moves and then Mbama becomes an issue. Bulldog I think's nailed, especially for the start, so obviously Bulldog's fine as well. Lucky last on Fantasy Football Hub, the updated draft, if we go back to game to week 1, gives me a game team rating of 97 over time, a 92% game week rating. As I mentioned, that's A, down to Mbeumo's injury a little bit. B, also Pickford instead of Onana drops that rating for this game week, but I do think long term it is really, really good. As you see next week, I think Turner definitely would come in as you look on the screen here, and that would make it a game week rating of 100% of a team rating of 97, and that is because it says I'm captaining Haaland. I'm telling you right now, I would be captaining Salah and taking the punt on him right there. If I was to do that, it's going to drop me down to a 96% team rating. I don't particularly mind. Chilwell on the bench, 3.1. Colwill on the bench. Bulldog on the bench against Nottingham Forest. Could play him if I really wanted to. but I don't think there would be any need. And I still think Maddison can return against United. And then in game week 3, looking only 3 game weeks ahead, is where I'll get a Stupin out for Porro. This run of fixtures for Spurs and Chelsea really do turn. I would bench Colwill for 1 extra week, and that's why I'm happy to have him, because I can bench him because he's 4.5 mil, and if it's missing a clean sheet, misses a clean sheet. B, I could go to Henry, but I don't think Henry gets in at any point. Rest of the team stays as it is. I think it's pretty good. And then in game week 4, I have 2 free transfers. This is where things can get fun. You can get Gabriel out to a Colwill, and this is where you can start maybe having a look of, is Pedro been nailed? If Pedro hasn't been nailed, is there another 5 mil midfielder that we're going through? Is this now the time when do you get off Salah, even though he's got Villa, Wolves and West Ham, which are not too bad? Is this maybe a moment where, you know, none of the other midfielders have shown themselves? Is this maybe a time where, okay, you're going to get in a different 6.5 mil player? Has Enciso become nailed? Who knows? Is this maybe Maddison down to Richarlison to fund a 0.5 mil to another player? It opens a lot of doors. And at the worst case scenario, if I wanted to move to another asset, it's Salah down to someone and you free up so much money that it's ridiculous. So look, I feel like the team gives me a really good amount of cover. It gives me good fixture between the 2 keepers. It allows me to double Chelsea defence when in those bad fixtures like Nottingham Forest, Bournemouth, etc. It allows me to get Pedro Porro in with Maddison. The only thing it doesn't do is money in the bank is 0, which means that unless we have an Estupiñán fall in price or Pedro Porro starts so well in the first 2 games, it goes up in price, which I don't see, I'll be priced out of that move, and that would be annoying. Outside of that, the rest of the team thinks pretty good. I also think there's a world where if Areola somehow becomes nailed at West Ham and we find out that he's nailed over Fabianski, I could move to 2 4.0 playing keepers to get money in the team. I could also maybe move Colwill down to a 4.0. But to be fair, I think, I'm 99% sure, this is the team that I'm going to be rolling for the first 4 game weeks without taking a hit. Long-term fixtures, saving transfers with Maddison and Chilwell and Colwill to get and attack those really big fixture swings. Still having Haaland, have Salah, and have the ability, if I really want to drop Salah to someone else if Liverpool do start poor, which I don't think we will, because I really do think we'll finish second this year and we'll be fine once everyone gets embedded. With that being said, thank you for watching another video. Let me know what you're going to do. Let me know what your teams look like, and of course who your big differential is, and of course who your most nailed on player is. For me, Haaland's most nailed on. Outside of that, my next nailed on player is Gabriel and Chilwell, and the Estupiñán, because that back 3 is template. My differentials obviously are Salah and Maddison over Rashford, and a more template, maybe 6.5 million midfielder or a Martinelli or an Odegaard. I really do think Salah and Maddison could outscore the likes of a Rashford with a Martinelli if they both get going, especially with captaincy in game week 2 for Salah. If you enjoyed the episode, give it a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll see you guys for a game week 2 recap and early thoughts and plans. Almost categorically will be rolling. Till next time, links down below to the podcast. Thank you and goodbye.